Hello, dear colleagues. My name is Al-Muhammad, and today we have an idiopathic intracranial hypertension with a severe sigmoid sinus stenosis on the right side in a young female patient. 2 years ago, the patient had a sinus thrombosis, and we've treated the patient through a transvenous PTA and stent implantation. In this case, we've chosen a very flexible stent with an antithrombogenic coating, and this stent is called CARESTO Heal, which requires a 52 delivery catheter. And recently, we've published the result of our last multicentric study about the use of this stent for idiopathic intracranial hypertension with a relevant intracranial venous sinus stenosis. And you can find the link to this paper in the video description below. And back to our patient, as you can see, there is a high-grade stenosis of the right sigmoid sinus. And here we can see a very good result after treating the stenosis with the stent and PTA, increasing the sinus diameter to normal. And as usual, the patient has been prepared with a dual antiplatelet therapy with aspirin and ticagrelor, beginning 5 days before the intervention and tested with Verify Now at the day of the intervention. And after 3 months, the ticagrelor was stopped. And here we go. We have an arterial and a venous axis in the right groin. We push the vertebral catheter through the arterial axis and navigate through the aortic arc and then through the brachiocephalic trunk and then into the right common carotid artery. And after that, we push the neuron max with the vertebral catheter into the venous axis and navigate the right jugular vein. And now we need a 2D angiogram to see the stenosis, and as you can see, there is a high-grade stenosis of the right sigmoid sinus marked with the white cursor, and we can see the old thrombus in the lower side of the sinus. And before we start the PTA and stenting, we need to measure the venous blood pressure to verify the hemodynamic relevance of the stenosis at many points, but the deciding measurement here is the transstenotic gradient, and if we have a blood pressure difference equals 7 or more, then it is a relevant stenosis, and we can perform the PTA and stenting. And now we navigate with the microwire and push the Sterling monorail balloon on the microwire until we reach the stenosis, and then we can perform the PTA so that we can open the way for the larger PTA balloon. And before we remove the balloon, we can use it to bring the neuron max long sheath to the distal parts of the right transverse sinus to simplify the navigation with the larger balloon. And now we can remove the balloon and prepare the larger balloon. It's a Mustang 10 by 30 millimeters, and here we need a 35 Terumo wire to bring it through the sartorius anatomy. And after reaching the transverse sinus, we can pull back the neuron max and start the PTA at the distal parts of the stenosis. And then we can deflate the balloon partially and pull it back and perform a second PTA within the stenosis. And we need a last PTA in the lower parts of the stenosis so that we can be sure that we've treated the whole length of the stenosis. And here we can repeat the maneuver by pushing the neuron max long sheath on the balloon to reach the distal parts of the right transverse sinus to simplify the navigation of the delivery catheter of the CARESTO stent. And this is the neuroslider 52. We can push it with the Terumo wire through the neuron max long sheath into the superior sagittal sinus. And here we have the CARESTO Heal stent, which is very similar to a flow diverter. And after reaching the implantation zone, we can pull back the neuroslider delivery catheter to start the implantation. And we want to implant the CARESTO stent only in the transverse and sigmoid sinus. And as you can see, we have a very good wall adaptation, and the stent is going very well through the curves of the sartorius anatomy. And here we have the unsubtracted image, and the stent is well open. And now we need a 2D angiogram to see the results of our intervention, and as you can see, the stenosis is completely gone. And here we have the comparison between the situation before and after the PTA and stenting, a very big difference. And now we can remove the materials. And thus we've reached the end of our intervention. As always, if you have any questions, please put them down in the comments below. You can contact us per email too. Email addresses and further contact options are in the video description below. Thanks for watching. That was Al Muhammad. See you next time. Peace out.